By the third week of the 104th, the House Republican majority was working harder and faster than anyone could remember.
Mr. Speaker, our contract with America states, on the first 100 days of a Republican Congress, our House will force Congress to live under the same laws as everyone else, cut 1/3 of committee staff, cut the congressional budget, and ladies and gentlemen, we've done that.
On January 7th, it was the first promise in the contract and the quickest a law had passed through Congress since 1933. That, however, was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, freshman congressmen were dazed, trying to learn about committees of jurisdiction, markup, the protocols of the Rules Committee, getting the bill out on schedule, and the complexities of parliamentary procedure on the House floor.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that in engrossment of the bill, H.R. 728 is amended, the clerk be authorized to correct section numbers, cross-references, and punctuations, and to make such stylistic, clerical, technical, conforming, and other changes as may be necessary to reflect the actions of the House in amending the bill, and that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks on the bill H.R. 728.
We will sit here, we will be very vigorous, we will try to find out what is going on, and we will constantly ask why this has to be done and why this has to be done so rapidly and why the American people can't know the details.
This was trench warfare, tough, head-to-head. The Republican committee chairmen were making the process move.
We have been assigned a deadline by our leadership of getting this to the floor for a vote. And we're not going to be slowed down. We're bending over backwards to be fair. We moved along, I will grant you, precipitously, but we're confronted with a precipitous calendar.
Republican Henry Hyde of Illinois had toiled in Congress 20 years, never dreaming he would overnight be chairman of the powerful House Judiciary Committee.
Tax credit, $500 per child credit for families with annual incomes up to $200,000. That's too high. That'll come down.
So we're going to try to be more fair.
In past sessions, some committees would become the burial ground for many bills. Republicans promised to change that and break the gridlock. But one of the ways they did it was to shorten the debate.
But I can't believe that Rule 11 is going to be given this kind of short shrift on a constitutional question.
Mr. Chairman from Wisconsin.
Which one did you cut off debate and get
That was the balanced budget amendment. That was the first one we did, and they went ballistic, I can assure you. And I don't blame them, but I had just had to live up to the timetable.
This was Newt's Army. Combined during passage of the Congressional Accountability Act, the Speaker seemed to be spoiling for a fight.
So I'm quite happy. I think obviously you have the usual skirmishes with the old guard, and they're bitter about their defeat. But life's like that. They ought to grow up and get a life and move on.
On January 13th, reports circulated of the Speaker's proposed $4.5 million book deal involving TV tycoon Rupert Murdoch. January 13th, reports circulated of the Speaker's proposed $4.5 million book deal involving TV tycoon Rupert Murdoch. The Democrats had another target.
News accounts tell us that while the Speaker may have given up the $4.5 million advance, he stands to gain that amount and much more in royalties. That's a whole lot of dust where I come from. If anything now, how much the Speaker earns has grown much more dependent upon how hard his publishing house hawks this book.
I demand the gentlelady's words be
Which
taken
leads
down.
me to the question of exactly...
The Speaker, suspend.
Republicans have cut off the microphone of Congresswoman Carrie Meek. Democrats not only have a new target, they have a martyr.
The gentlewoman must be seated.
This is not the Duma. This is not the Reichstag. This is the House of the people. And in the 40 years that I have served here, it has been my pride that we've had free and open debate, and that great questions, including questions of the propriety and the behavior of members of this body, could be discussed on the floor in an appropriate fashion. Today, we find that that cannot be.
Instead of attacking Republicans for writing books, I suggest the Democrats write their own book. A suggested title might be The Gang That Wouldn't Shoot Straight.
To gag a member of the House of Representatives is the first step towards the dictatorship of the majority.
It is clear now.
Will not be gagged. We will not be silenced. We will not be intimidated.
No comment about Speaker.
I go into a third grade class in Houston, Texas, help me, please help me convey in good conscience and in truth that there is no gag rule in the United States House of Representatives, and in fact, that we do uphold the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States.
The strategy was working, serving not only to distract Republicans, but to unify a dispirited Democratic Party.
News accounts tell us that while the Speaker may have given up a $4.5 million advance, he stands to gain that amount and much more in royalties.
Will the gentleman from California state his point?
Those words have been stricken from the record by a vote of the House. The gentleman from Missouri cannot repeat them.
Will the gentleman from Missouri
Strike him again. Read.
The government and the floor of the House and the Senate is a place where it's a substitute for arena violence.
Mr. Speaker, Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, would you like to speak?
Words have been stricken from the record by a vote of this House. The gentleman under the rules is not allowed to repeat them, and he continues to do so.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. That is not true.
It's a verbal clashing of ideas and thoughts, and for people who want tea parties, democratic governments are not the place for them.
I object to the gentleman from California lying to this House.
Order.
The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
And the House floor wasn't the only place where tempers were growing short. Speaker Gingrich had also heard about enough. On January...
Where it's at. This city is going to be a mean, tough, hard city, and everybody better understand that coming down the road. Now, what you've got in this city is a simple principle. I am a genuine revolutionary. They are the genuine reactionaries. We are going to change their world. They will do anything to stop us. They will use any tool. There is no grotesquerie, no distortion, no dishonesty too great for them to come after us. It was a pretty amazing speech. Until we win, there is no quarter. So I gave a speech that was an appropriate report from the battlefield. It was a great speech.
After almost 2 weeks of nuke bashing, the Speaker didn't seem unduly concerned. His approval ratings, however, had started to dip. Votorial pages. On reflection, Gingrich reconsidered some of his comments. As they continued to grind through the contract.
I've gone home after the floor work is done. I've literally gone to my house, some half-hour drive away, gone into the house, turned on the TV, checked C-SPAN, and found the C-SPAN cameras on a committee at 12 o'clock at night, sitting, marking up the bill that we're going to be bringing in a few days later.
If it is ruled by the parliamentarian that such an amendment is germane...
Majority Leader Dick Armey was point man, shepherding the contract through the democratic machinery of lawmaking.
We not only have the House running, but it is running at a faster pace, moving more legislation more quickly than they ever thought possible. 40 years of running this place, they couldn't make the machinery operate like we are.
For what reason does the gentleman from North Carolina rise?
Democrats considered the process not just fast, but dangerously so.
It is not the kind of deliberative, more rational, more reasonable process that we've always followed. Again, because we have this self-imposed 100-day deadline that they're feverishly trying to meet.
It's almost like Newt Gingrich is up in his office with a remote control, pushing the button, click, 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 and everybody has to do it, whether they think it's the right thing or not.
You going to go with me if we have to walk over?
On January 26th, Gingrich pushed perhaps the most important button in the contract, passage by the House of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution.
I demand a recorded vote, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor of the question will vote aye, and those opposed will vote no. Members will record their votes by electronic device. The yeas are 300, and the nays are 132. Two-thirds of those present having voted in the affirmative, the joint resolution is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.